All right, we're good. Oh,
Hello.
hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm very well. In lockdown where I am in Australia, where I have to work from home at the moment, which works fine in my business
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a financial advisor, which is I pretty much live by my computer, so working from home is not such a burden.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from that, I'm well. I'm hoping that by the end of the year I can travel again, but at the moment we're not allowed to leave the country. So yeah.
Yeah,
Unless, of
unfortunate.
course, you're a sportsman or a politician or a
Yeah.
rock star, then
Mm.
there's obviously all the answers in the world for you to leave. So,
Yeah, of course.
uh,
Well, how are you feeling after this decision?
the decision, this decision,
Yeah.
whoops. I, I guess two parts. I'm disappointed that what's happened,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but I'm probably disappointed at one with the result, but the way in which the Court of Appeals has addressed it. Um, But I compartmentalize that into a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and what gives me my go forward is that Stephen and Brendan are innocent men, right? So, and the people who are suffering the most in this disappointment is them, not me, not you, not whomever.
Yeah.
They've been in jail. So you just bring your mind back to what they're going through and realize how lucky we are. And even though we're trying hard and we're not getting all the goals that we're kicking, it doesn't stop us playing the game. And I'm just sort of doubling up my efforts and pushing forward. And I'm still just as confident that we'll get the outcome that they deserve and
Mm-hmm.
that we believe in. It might take a bit longer than expected now, but it doesn't change the fact that Stephen and Brendan are innocent men, and we'll get there eventually. And Stephen himself, because I can vouch for him, he's very upbeat and positive. And again, he would have been disappointed on the day, but he's just if you were speaking with him now, he'd just be going, "That's all right. We're going to get there." So
He's
you got
very,
to
very,
support him.
very strong individual. I'll give him that.
Yeah, and he gets that strength from his innocence, Melbelly.
Oh, I know.
That's where he gets it from. He knows he's innocent. He knows he hasn't done anything wrong. And even though he's suffering the improper actions of others, he he breathes in his innocence every day, and that gives him that strength. So
Well, hearing him talk with you that you put out,
yep,
read, it helped me a lot more than you probably
yeah,
know. Because I
it
was
helps me a lot. I can tell you that.
I was broke up reading that reply or decision.
Yeah, my main thrust of this document, which I've read through a couple of times now, is um, it's more complicated than I'm going to be able to give justice to in this discussion. But
Mm-hmm.
you read into it, they're looking for reasons not to consider the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not looking for the truth. They're looking for reasons not to consider the truth. And to me, justice should be about truth seeking.
Yes.
Okay, there are technical aspects of the justice process that, for the sake of avoiding, frivolous claims, you want to have rules, etc. I get that. But
You
Stevens,
mean the unjust system?
yes. Well, Stevens' claims are not frivolous,
No.
you know, and they're well constructed. They're independently verified. Um, One of the things I actually mentioned in a tweet today was to give the example of what I'm saying here is that um, in regard to, let me just get the issue of the bones. That's right, the issue of the bones. So on page starts at page 42, page 43. It's towards the end of the
Mm-hmm.
decision. The Court of Appeals say, uh, I'll just read it. Actually, it might be easier.
Yep.
They even use this language, which I find interesting. The gist of motion 5, the gist.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you even use that language? The gist in motion 5 is that the state released to Hallbach's family suspected human bone fragments recovered from the Manitowoc County gravel pit, thereby, one, violating a circuit court order, and two, violating Wisconsin Statute 968.205, requiring the state to preserve certain biological material evidence connected to a criminal conviction, and 3, Avery's constitutional rights. And then go on to say, I'll paraphrase it, we don't have to consider 1 and 2. So they're not at all interested in whether the circuit court's order was violated or whether the statute was violated. But my view about that is that even though these are post-conviction behaviours, someone's statutory rights in a criminal prosecution are perpetual and continuing. They don't just end at the time of conviction. So his rights have been violated relevant to his entitlements to things because of actions that took place post his conviction. And I'm only talking about that one point now, that Bones point.
Well, it's just like the Fassbender CD.
Yes.
Like how this bothers me. They deliberately misled his attorneys.
Well, here's another point I make about the CD, the Veely CD, Fassbender Veely CD, is evidence is evidence. Evidence can take content, that is words and stats, and it also can take form.
Yep.
You know, what is physical structure. So they argue, then the Court of Appeals affirm this, that the content that was otherwise on the CD was on the DVDs, right? But I think that's irrelevant. What quite apart from the arguments of how difficult it was to find it on the DVDs, what's relevant is the form in this case. There was a state-constructed piece of evidence, that is a CD, physical metal thing with plastic and etc., kept away from the defence. It shouldn't matter what was on it, but what we know, because it was on it in a more sort of simplistic, overt form, it's a different form of the same thing, right?
Yep. Yes.
It's like having a big juicy tomato on a plate as opposed to a few cherry tomatoes hidden in the salad, right? If you see that big juicy tomato, it looks something different, even though they're both tomatoes.
Yep.
Or tomatoes in American sense. So I just think that's a really weak argument to say it's because it was already on the DVDs, and you're looking for reasons not to give the benefit to the defendant, in this case, Stephen Avery.
Also, when the prosecution handed over everything, they led them to believe that there was nothing there.
Nothing of evidentiary value.
And the fact that they didn't disclose that CD because Fassbender kept it in his own possession, what else did they keep from the defense? Exactly.
And then they go back, and the other thing that the appeal court does quite regularly in this judgment is put themselves in the courtroom, in the dock, by saying, and we don't see how this would have changed the jury's opinion. Right? To me, that's not relevant at this moment.
How can they determine what the jury would? They're not the jury. They weren't there. They didn't watch the whole trial. They don't know what transpired.
Correct. I mean, there's a good example of that in the issue with the claim about Bobby Dassey, and with due respect to Bobby's presumption of innocence. So the claim that Bobby Dassey, that the alleged discovery of pornographic material and other things on his computer, if that were to be held to be true, they didn't establish how that would have influenced the jury, right? I mean, we know very well it would have influenced the jury, because we know when the jury retired to consider their verdict, they asked the judge for more information about Bobby Dassey's testimony. Now, if that CD had been presented in evidence, it would have impeached a lot of what Bobby had said, and certainly would have changed the characterization of Bobby in those circumstances. Now, again, the presumption of innocence to Bobby, but it would have changed it. If you're a jury member sitting there and Bobby Dassey is giving testimony, and his character is being questioned by the discovery of information on a CD that shows violent and behavior and pornography and so on and so on and so on, are you as a juror going to think differently of that witness? Of course you are. Of course you are. So for the Court of Appeals to kind of say, well, I don't think that would have in any way affected the jury's decision, that's the whole idea of an evidentiary hearing, to see how significant that information is. And that was the disappearing overall, the disappointing overall flavor I had of this judgment, that it started to do like a Sukowicz thing of trying to be judge and jury at the same time, and I don't think that's their role.
What do you think about their recommendations to Kathleen Zoner, what she should do?
Well, I was a little surprised. I don't know whether they're trying to have a little bit both ways here. They might be trying to direct her in a way that she loses connectivity to her current claim, because I don't know what Kathleen Zollner is going to do. It's not my position to know.
Yeah.
But I think she will move forward to the Supreme Court. That would be my guess on the matters that she'll have the view, I believe. I don't know. I believe she'll have the view that the Court of Appeal heard in a number of areas, and she want to keep those claims alive by bringing them forward.
I just don't understand. Last time they sent it back so they could include everything.
I think that was a delay tactic on reflection, so just to push it back again.
Yeah,
push it back.
Yeah, you just think
because we know. Look how much effort that the Court of Appeal put in. Even though I don't accept much of what they say, put in quite an effort with their reply. Angela Sukowicz rejected it, in a 6-page summary or some very short piece of information.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a phone just turned off.
It always bothers me because we have that 1,000-page document where KZ was requesting to retest everything.
Yep.
And she just denied. But then her subsequent motion after that, she took forever and a day to come to a conclusion. And she spent more time addressing why she shouldn't be recused than she should anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they pick and choose what they want to focus on.
Correct. And I mean, again, if you truly believe in the pursuit of the truth, Stephen's pro se petition at the time when he only had himself and Sandra, that was their team, right? To somehow deny him natural justice because of he was sitting there, no one else was helping, doing the damn best he could from a prison cell.
Yeah,
is just stinks. I just don't think that should really be allowed. But as I said, it had the color to me. They were looking for reasons to not give him. An evidentiary hearing is not a proof of anything. It's a hearing to hear evidence. The only thing that makes it formal is it's on the record. It's in a court. People swear to tell the truth.
Yep.
But you can have as we know with Brendan's evidentiary hearing, when Kratz was in the stand, when Kaczynski was in the stand, when Michael O'Kelly was in the was in the stand, and all that blubbering that went on there, Judge Fox ruled against him anyway, right?
Yep.
So there's no guarantee you should get an evidentiary hearing that you're going to win, but you do get it on the record. Now, clearly to me, they don't want that to happen because they don't want any of this to be on the record. That's what they're avoiding. Whereas the significant content of Kathleen Zellner's motion was more than sufficient to warrant an evidentiary hearing to flesh it out.
Yep.
So,
well, all these emails we got tell a different side of the story too. They're scared.
Yeah. I'm not. I mean, my only concern is Steve and Brendan are still in prison. That's my concern. And there are social and lifestyle things because Steve just lost his mum and Brendan's lost his grandmother. Steve's dad is in his 80s. He's okay. But, when you get to the age that he's at, you're going to be more susceptible to problems than you are when you're in your 60s.
Have you talked to Alan?
I haven't actually spoken to him. Alan it's difficult to speak to Alan because Alan is hard of hearing.
Yeah, I know.
And so you got to kind of be like we are, face to face, and you reading lips and you're reading intent.
Yeah.
And when I have been with him face to face in the past, I can communicate quite well with him. We do not frequently, but occasionally write each other letters. So he's a staunch supporter of Stephen. And we're trying our best to facilitate him getting back down to Warpond for some visits, because he hasn't seen Stephen face to face for,
Quite a while.
since February
Pre-pandemic.
or March. Yeah, pre-pandemic. Yeah, and I mean, it would be an awful thing, an absolutely awful thing if anything happened to Alan
I know.
in the meantime. And Steve, it was hard enough for Stephen to learn about his mum in the way that all unfolded. Where his mum obviously couldn't visit him anyway.
Yeah.
She was in nursing care for quite a while before she passed. But Alan's not. He's able and drives his car and goes up to Crivets every week, and he's capable of going to Warpond with no trouble at all. So it's a easy process to book an appointment to go and see Stephen. The system in the prisons changed that you have to actually have appointments.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to facilitate him seeing his son and his son seeing his father. God, just on the basis of humanity, that should be happening.
Yeah.
But Stephen, despite all that, Millbilly, Stephen is really positive and strong, and the visits have recommenced with Sandra, so she's seeing him every week now, and which is nice.
It's good to hear.
And I speak with him, I don't know, probably every second day on average, something like that. So sometimes more than that, but on average, that's probably what it is.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
So I know the overall.
I appreciate everything you've done for them, man. All of them.
Thank you. We're all a big team here. That's the way I see it. We all have different circumstances and skill sets and abilities, and I just see my effort, as I'm sure you do, it's just part of a big jigsaw of support. No one piece is better than the other, but we're much more powerful as one than we are in separate pieces.
I agree.
And I would say to anyone who feels a little bit, deflated by what's happening in the Court of Appeals, that's a totally understandable reaction. Just all I would say is, once you take a deep breath and just regather your thoughts and get back out there and do whatever you can, big or small, because the people who are suffering the most are still sitting in prison, not us. So, we're just going to keep going. One of the things that I find kind of delightfully bizarre about this is the longer this goes on, the more stuff that's going to come out. We'll be assured of that.
Like if they were I've said this numerous times, if they're so sure on their conviction, why are they continue to hide things?
Correct. Absolutely. And they not only hiding things, they're hiding things at very strategic times, like the lack of phone calls for the Friday, the 4th of November, right?
Well, that's just for the Manitowoc audio.
Yeah.
What about the several calls before the 31st that are sealed between Jody and Stephen?
Yeah.
And it's all the phone calls to his landline. We don't have. We got the phone calls.
I probably had it explained to me, and forgive me if I'm just ignorant, I don't remember, but what gives them the right to seal phone calls? What are they trying to protect by sealing stuff?
The truth?
Yeah.
They don't like the 9:33 p.m. call on the 3rd. I would love to hear that.
But why, other than the truth, which wouldn't be the answer they would give you if you ask them, why can't we have those calls? What would be the legal answer to that?
They're sealed. That's basically what they say when we FOIA for them. They're sealed.
They're sealed.
Just like the Bobby Dassey interviews.
The wherever the RAV4 is.
Yep.
You'd have to really start to wonder whether the RAV4 even exists now. So
they gave away the bones, so
yeah. So, but if you had, with due respect to Mrs. Holbach, if you had Mrs. Holbach up in the witness box and said, Mrs. Holbach, when you received those bones from the state back in whenever it was in 2011, did you believe they were your daughters? What do you think her answer as a mother would be? Yes. You don't want anyone else's bones other than those of your daughters. And then the next question would be, if you believe them your daughters, what gave you the confidence that was true? the answer has got to be because such and such told me that was the case. How else would you know?
Mm-hmm.
They're the sorts of evidentiary questions they do not want to have asked.
You're right.
That's where the problem lies. Because as soon as Mrs. Hallbach, as one witness, just as an example, she's not going to lie. I don't believe she's going to lie, because it'll just make her look ridiculous. So she's going to have to point to, well, who was it that told you that we have Teresa's bones?
Well, based on that filing we just had, they made it sound like they requested the bones.
Yeah, well, we don't know that though, do we?
That's what it says in the document. The Hallbachs requested the bones, and that's why they gave them back to her.
They requested the bones. Okay, so there's another piece of evidence. I mean, that's an interesting piece of evidence that we've never seen before. So where did they get that from? That's just one point. The second thing is, if they requested the bones, Mrs. Hallbach on the stand, if you requested those bones because of the state is saying you did,
mm-hmm.
What were you hoping to receive on that request? Were you hoping to receive your daughter's bones? And then we get back to that same line of questioning. Answer, yes. Okay. And who told you that they were your daughter's bones? And it was Mr. X or Mr. X and Mr. Y and so on.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to think, given the nature of the Hallbachs live in Calumet County, that it was probably a connection with Mark Wiegert and, Tom Fallon and Norm Garn or whoever the players were in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, but it's those environments that they don't want to have brought to court. And this document, this weighty document, is all about trying to avoid the questioning in court.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's not about the pursuit of truth.
Nope.
It's about trying to avoid the discovery of the truth.
Right.
And you don't have to even like Stephen Avery or Brendan Dassey to want the truth.
Nope.
Because in like circumstances, it could be any one of us.
You're 100% right.
And, dear Brendan, and no less painful than for Stephen, but dear Brendan's a bloody 17-year-old boy back in 2005 when all this happened, and 2007 when he was finally sentenced.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just imagine that happening to your own children?
I've told my daughter, never talk to the cops, no matter what.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to the cops, then talk to them. But if they're coming to talk to you, tell them to talk to me first. Yes.
Yeah. I agree. I say that to my children as well. My children are young adults in their 30s. But just be polite, tell them who you are. But if you're in a situation where you feel like you're being questioned over something, just say, no, I'm not talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's not to be out of disrespect to them. It's just you have to protect your own interests.
Yep. Well, I'm thankful that Illinois just passed the law that the cops can't lie to kids no more. They shouldn't be able to lie at all.
No, they shouldn't. They shouldn't be able to lie at all. And I think they replicated that legislation over in Washington or Oregon or somewhere, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm. And I believe the state of New England is trying to get that too.
Yeah. So they're the sorts of things that are fundamental to a good justice system. And the other issue that's important, and I've always said, and I know Jerome Buting goes on about it as well, is that there shouldn't be immunity from prosecution for prosecutors and other law enforcement who knowingly behave improperly. I don't mean make a mistake. That's one thing. And you have insurance for that, right? To protect the person and the organization. But when you deliberately do stuff that you know is improper, you should not ever be entitled to immunity. You're just setting up people to do bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've given them no motivation to curtail their behavior. Mm-hmm. And that motivation is, geez, I don't want to go to prison, right?
Right.
But until we desperately need that legislation to change. So immunity shouldn't exist for anyone who's knowingly acted improperly.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to, it's been not quite a week yet since the announcement. So I suspect is it 30 days filing for the Supreme Court? That's usually the time frame.
Something like that, yeah.
I'm sure Kathleen Zellner is busying herself this week and the weeks to follow before the end of August to get her next step in play. So, but in the meantime, we can, in our private ways and our public ways, we can keep on keeping on and doing whatever research we think or whatever kind of initiatives we think are going to help discover new information. Because you can bring as many 97406 petitions you like, provided it's newly discovered evidence. So we'll just keep that going.
Well, touch on some positive notes. I heard you announce the winners of the foundation.
Yeah, that was great. We found two very different candidates, both fascinating individuals, Samuel Kilazzo and Jeff Jones. And we've conducted extensive interviews with them to find out what their motivations were and why we thought they would work in what we're trying to achieve. And as I say, two very different candidates with different backgrounds, different experiences, but we thought both would be well worthy of the scholarships, and we announced them today on the anniversary of Richard's passing. So I hope that Dr. Pepper would be pleased with our choices. I think he would.
I had Dr. Pepper today.
That's good. Yeah. So I'm up in the stars today thinking about him. That's what you see in my green screen.
Yeah.
So there's much still to do, Millbilly. So I'm hoping everyone will take a deep breath and get our collective heads together and follow some pathways that are going to be fruitful. I'm sure they're out there. So
keep talking till they're walking.
Correct. That'll be definitely the case. We're not going away at all.
Well, people that are watching this, if you're still watching this, if you rewatch this, put in the comments what you'd like me to talk about. Because, I don't know, I could talk about this case all day. Just
yes.
Which avenue would you like me to travel down first?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a few ideas myself that I'll talk to you off air. But there are things, it's all about discovery, really, discovery. And even though the state is pushed back on some of the FOIA stuff, sometimes those pushbacks tell you a whole bunch of stuff as well.
Well, I'm curious. There's a new sheriff in Manitowoc, so who knows?
Yep.
But there's still a lot of people that are involved in the case in 2005 that still work for the department.
Yes.
Dave Remiker, Andy Beck, just to name a few.
Yes. Hey, could I just mention one thing? I heard I was listening to one of your broadcasts, and you're talking about the status of the Colburn Netflix defamation case. That's been given a timeline of resolve it until if you don't resolve it by April, we're going to trial.
Yeah, April 2022.
Yeah.
If they don't come to any agreement before then, there's going to be an evidentiary hearing.
It'll be a fascinating case. Forget about the making a murderer connection just for a moment. But the whole issue of broadcast media, drama making, documentary making.
Yep. I
can see this issue being really fought hard by not just Netflix, but by the industry, right? And I think, if you think about all the things that people do see on television, even if we're talking about comedians or commentators, etc., who cast doubt about people's integrity, I think be interesting to see how the American courts, or in this case, it's the federal court, judge the role of media in storytelling. Though it's going to be a very interesting case to see how that unfolds. I can't see Netflix and and any of the other players, the movie makers, are backing off on this.
Well, as soon as there's any update in that case, I get an email instantly.
Yep, for sure. And thanks for following that. It's very, very valuable stuff to know about. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm still debating if I should upload the hearing. I don't see no point because it's the document that came after the hearing. I was planning to call in and listen to it, but that Stephen's appeal was being decided, so
Yeah.
I chose the more important thing over.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going to be an interesting matter to see how it unfolds. Typically, I don't know, with due respect to Mr. Colborne, which I don't have a lot, to be honest, but with due respect to him, I'm not sure how he's funding this process. But it can't be, once you get down the track, it can't be a cheap exercise, that's for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But if he loses, how much is he going to lose? That's the question.
Well, you get to the evidentiary hearing, he's going to be...
I'm not talking about money.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be a lot of... he's going to be up in the witness stand, and probably some other players as well that are trying to avoid that circumstance. So, because if you think about it, the filmmakers had, I don't know how many hours of tape. They must have had, hundreds and hundreds of hours of tape. They had to edit down to 10 hours, basically, in each season. You would have thought that the courts would understand that there's going to be some degree of editing and dramatization, because that's what you have to do and tell a story. And provided it, and Mr. Colburn's a law enforcement officer, and so I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I think my weight of likelihood is towards Netflix and the other side than Mr. Colburn's side, because I just think they've just told a story, and the rest. I mean, I know he's aggrieved because people out in the social media world have negative things to say about him. They would have negative things to say about him just reading the trial transcripts, let alone anything else.
I would like to see the documentary they submitted to the film festival before Netflix even got around.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if it's out there anywhere, but they did present it.
Yep.
So. Well, if you talk to Stephen, tell him I said hi.
Yes, I will. Be absolutely assured, everybody out there, that Stephen is well aware of the level of support he has, and very frustrated that he can't express it directly as he might otherwise like to do. But he's buoyed by the level of support he has, and.
I had people asking me questions. Can they send Stephen blank pieces of paper?
Blank pieces of paper?
Like, write him a letter and include some blank pieces of paper with it so he could write back?
Oh, provided the paper is just paper. There's not anything, no glitter on it or no funny things on it. Or
when people ask me questions, I tell them to just write it on a postcard, because then they got to go through with search and everything. They can give it right to them.
Yeah. So basically what happens is the mail comes in through the system, and it's scanned. Scanned, and they open the envelope. And he ends up getting, as best I understand, he gets the envelope and the item inside it. And if it hasn't set off any detector, he gets it. So, and he's received in recent, especially with the death of his mother, but also in this instance, he's received just hundreds and hundreds of pieces of mail.
It's
from
good.
people supporting him. So he's his own internal post office at Walpond Correctional. So,
Nope.
so yeah.
The thumbnail for this video is his P.O. box.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And Stephen really enjoys getting that mail. So, and he'll do his best to reply to everyone. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. He's only allowed to have a certain amount of documents in his room at any one time. So sometimes he has to ship them out before he gets to reply. But be assured that if you're writing from you to him. You don't, even though he will likely reply, don't be upset or concerned if he hasn't replied. It's not a statement about anything other than being overwhelmed with the amount of correspondence.
I'm sure some things people, the instance that he can't write back, they probably wonder if he even got it.
Yeah, I that's always possible, but I think from my experience, every time I've sent Stephen, I'll often send him a card or a little brief thing. Every time I've sent him something, he has got it eventually. Luckily for me, I can confirm that because he can tell me. So I think there's probably a high level of likelihood that he has received it. The only time he wouldn't receive something is if it had anything in it that wasn't allowed. And when that occurs, I think they just keep it aside, and he has to, along with other stuff, organise it to be shipped out either, I don't know, to Sandra or to one of his children or whatever, taken out of the prison, and he never gets to see it. So, but just send them a normal letter, a normal postcard, a funny card. Don't have any fancy glitter or bells or buttons that play, you know, the Star Spangled Banner when you push it, or anything like that. And then that's all permitted. So, yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on and chatting with me.
My pleasure. Always good to talk to you, Millbilly. And thank you for all your work and all your team that does stuff. It's just fascinating. So I think as a collective, we're quite powerful, and I'm very grateful to be part of it. So, yeah.
I agree.
All right. Well, God knows what hour it is for you there. It must be 2:30 in the morning or something, is it?
That's right.
You should be. You're kind of living on Australian time. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. Monday here now.
Well, I got off of work about 2 hours ago.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, mate. Well, you take care, and we'll talk again soon.
For sure.
Okay. Catch you later.
Later.
Bye.